Tell us about the house next door to you in Mattapan.
So yeah, as you all know, I live in Mattapan, and there was a recent Herald article about a bust of some trafficking of meth and fentanyl in the community, and I think, they had some facts wrong. It's a house that is directly next to me. I can look out my window and see this house. It is a major public safety hazard for my family, for my husband, my kids, and for the whole neighborhood. And the sad part is it's been a problem property in the city for probably over 4 years. I had a neighbor, Helen, who was an elder Irish woman who lived in Mattapan probably close to 50 years, loved Mattapan, stayed in Mattapan, sadly died during COVID and the pandemic. And when I was on the city council, started complaining about the house when an individual took over the house, moved into the house, took it over, and just the traffic coming in and out, et cetera.
People all hours of day and night.
I mean, middle of the night, women and just all types of characters coming in and out. So fast forward, I become Attorney General, and as everyone knows, it's an honor and privilege to protect the safety of everyone across the Commonwealth, and of course want to do that in my own neighborhood. And so the state police led an investigation, a very thorough one, and literally did a bust on Wednesday morning and found significant amounts of meth and fentanyl in that house. And so I'm pushing the city to do sort of its civil part to get that person out of there. And what's sad is the person who is illegally living there is registered to live in Boston Housing Authority. So it's a major issue, and so I'm hoping the city will step up and do its part to address it. And it's just one thing I want to stress, and I'm more emotional because it's like you go out to protect other community, and I have 2 young boys. No one should have to go through this. And folks in Mattapan have frequently said, they often will feel over-policed and underprotected. This is what they're talking about. You complain about something in your neighborhood, something's not right, you call the police, you engage your elected officials, say for years, and you don't get the response that you need with a sense of urgency. So we'll do our part, but I will tell you, it's been a very stressful couple of days.
Why did it take 4 years and apparently the city didn't take the ultimate action, the state police did?
Exactly,
So
and kudos to the state police. I mean, I don't want to suggest that, obviously we work with BPD, we work with the city on so many different things, but in this particular instance, I think you got to be a little bit more aggressive and with a sense of urgency and not give an individual who's proven to be a criminal and trafficking drugs the benefit of the doubt.
So the mayor...
And he's back in the house, by the way, which is even more disturbing. And I tell you, when I say it's been a tough couple of days, I'm not, it has been a tough couple of days, and of course I do my job really well, but it's difficult to do that as you are trying to protect your family and protect the Commonwealth at the same time.
So I assume you're not going to call in for Ask the Mayor, which follows you. In a moment of seriousness, what should be broached with the mayor about this?
Well, I would say, we're pushing ISD, we're pushing the city of Boston to do their part.
Which means what?
BHA, which means to get him out of there, to get him out of our community, to really shut that place down, to not allow it to continue to be a place where they're trafficking drugs, human trafficking, the same thing. It is really disturbing. And I can't stress this enough. I'm not one to, me, point fingers. But when you've been dealing for something for so long, and I have a state police detail that sits outside of my house, and what they see and witness, the powerlessness that they feel, and I think that I feel at moments, is just ridiculous. And so we're pushing really hard. The Suffolk County DA's office has also been doing really great work here. They're prosecuting, this case. They just got it. They just had the arraignment, and they're seeing what they can do as well from their end to sort of help the situation.
I don't mean to make light of any of this because there's nothing funny about it, but just kind of the idea of someone
doing that
next door,
it's absurd and ridiculous.
Law enforcement
right.
officer of the land who's got a who's got a state police detail out in front of the house. I mean, when you go out to put the garbage out, I mean, do you wave to this person?
Well,
or
one
do you
time,
see
one
them, or do they
individual
shovel
did,
the snow,
one individual did wave to me, and I thought the audacity, which even tells you. I mean, there are several communities, not just in Boston, but across the Commonwealth, that deal with this level of crime. And I'm really proud to work with a great state police unit in partnership with local law enforcement to get drugs and guns off the street, but of course want to do that in my same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And to do that in front of the state police who are sitting there and don't, their job is to protect my house, my children, my family, particularly as we take on different types of cases that heighten the threat for elected officials, sadly. They can't chase things down, but they've done their part, and now it's sort of pushing the city to do their part. And I say this as someone who served on the local city council, who always pushes our team to be responsive and to move with a sense of urgency, and not to give those we deem to be criminals and who are doing things in our neighborhood any slack.
Well, my takeaway on this, beyond what Marjorie said a minute ago, is you're just an average person who lives in Boston listening to this, and for 3 years a city councilor couldn't get action, and for, a year an attorney general couldn't get action. What does that person say to themselves about the next door neighbor they have that's a problem, in the sense of it's hopeless?
It's the same thing. And I think government, I always tell my team, and I'm so proud to work with this team, to say we cannot always be reactive. We have to be proactive. And one way to be proactive is when someone's living in a neighborhood and they're seeing certain things, including in suburban communities where we are seeing human trafficking in a house right next to you, where people are saying, I'm seeing traffic, I'm seeing other things. We have to look into that, and we tend to wait for something horrific to happen. You get the speed humps only after some person gets hit by a car. Yeah. You get the enforcement action only after someone has trafficked meth in your community. And that's just unacceptable. And I think for me, as someone who wants to get things done, not point fingers, this is unacceptable.
We're talking to Andrea Campbell, who's the Attorney General. We'll get to your calls and texts in a minute at 877-301-8970. One other thing where you are taking action, because you have the power to do it, and I don't know how many other Attorneys General are, you've sued some members of this small but problematic neo-Nazi operation here in Massachusetts. Explain what the basis of your case is.
So this is NSC 131, which is the National Social Club, whose primary mission, I think, is not only to terrorize and target residents and visitors who come here who are different, but to promote this idea that New England is only for pure white people of European descent. And I've been stressing that everyone should care about this neo-Nazi group, which is based here in Massachusetts, but doing things across the country, including in New Hampshire. And so I'm really proud of the team that's worked on this for an extensive period of time, doing a very thorough investigation to launch a complaint against these individuals and organizations under our civil rights civil rights law, our public accommodations law, trespass, nuisance. They're going out to target specific people, whether it's the migrants who are coming here, showing up at these hotels and making it more difficult for folks who are running these hotels, doing their jobs, to do their jobs effectively. They're targeting folks in the LGBTQ plus community, at drag queen story hours, you name it, which are designed to be family-friendly events. They were just a nuisance, to say the least. And they also do these, patrols where they're going around and dropping literature or just spreading their sort of hate message. And we're saying enough is enough, that we don't have to stand by and let people deal with that, be terrorized. And so I'm proud of the complaint. It's a civil complaint on a whole host of fronts.
What are you asking for?
So we're asking for civil penalties. We're asking for an injunction related to certain behavior. And so more to come on that. We will keep people focused on this. But I will just stress, everyone should care about this. We say in Massachusetts we're a Commonwealth that is welcoming of immigrants and everyone. We're a Commonwealth that prides ourselves in protecting the civil rights and human rights of our residents, and that we are a beacon of hope and light for so many people. And here we have a neo-Nazi group in the modern day age, 2023, targeting folks of different religious backgrounds, of different identities and demographic, right here in Massachusetts, and we're saying enough is enough. It's absolutely unacceptable.
And by the way, as we've said repeatedly, including when we mentioned your litigation the other day, in addition to sort of urban terrorist types, not your characterization, mine, they're also cowards. These are the 30 people who go around with their face covered.
Right. That's right.
And if they're so proud of their white supremacy, maybe they should uncover their face and talk.
Right, so they're employers and neighbors, and everyone knows who they
are, because they're obviously proud of what they do.
Tell me how you feel. That's
it's interesting, though, you did not include, at least as far as I can tell in your litigation, a demonstration these same people did in Arlington outside the governor's house, because you believe that's protected activity?
Well, it depends, right? It's obviously a more late developing notion, and I think I've had conversations directly with the governor on this. I think she also has her stance onto how she wants to respond to what happened outside of her home and measures that she wants to take with her family.
But you didn't think it was actionable, obviously.
Well, we haven't delved into that deeply. We focus on incidents that came through the office, things that had happened in the past in a public nature. And most of our complaint already come together before the incident with the governor.
So that might be added at some point.
It could be. And I think it's just another example of these folks who are looking to target folks because they're different. And let's not forget our governor is not only the first openly gay person to serve, and to serve obviously as a woman as well. They are targeting her for particular reasons. And I think her progressive stances on protecting migrants in this moment in time as we inherit these issues because the federal government can't create a pathway to citizenship, they're targeting her for that too. And so we're going to stand in support of her and other elected officials who are doing the right thing in Massachusetts.
You're talking about the drug dealers next door to your house in Mattapan. It just had
I think Texas. About that, exactly.
And the first one was from Bob in Worcester, who said, drug bust happened next door to us about 3 weeks ago, half pound of methamphetamine, 7 grams of coke, a lot of cash. The person's a career criminal. Worcester police have raided his house several times, but he goes to jail, comes right back out, and does it all over again in a very rural, nice neighborhood. He said that this person also had a 3-strike violation on him in the state of California, but was released. I guess it needed more room in the prisons there, and now he's back to the Commonwealth. So I guess I wasn't sure what his question was. He wants the police department tied in Worcester to the National Data Bank. But
well, I will say, again, local law enforcement in this case, it sounds like stepping up, responding, and doing what they can. And you have to do it hand in hand with the district attorneys, right? In this case, obviously, D.A. Hayden and his team are actively involved in this. We have recused ourselves in many ways because of, obviously, the conflict here. And you have to hold people accountable. And I think there's a way to do that, particularly folks who are trafficking guns and drugs in our communities, and be forceful, give the DAs the resources they need. We're obviously always pushing the legislation. You say trafficking
humans, too. Is that?
That, too. And that wasn't necessarily in this particular complaint and warrant, but there was definitely a part of the investigation, individuals that were also a part of this, too.
Let's take some calls, 877-301-8970, Marjorie.
Tom in Winchester, thank you for calling.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
And my question for the Attorney General is what agency in the state has responsibility for overseeing the process that MassSave goes through for the rebates that are designed to be incentives for people to switch over from fossil fuels? Based on my experience, the process is really kind of messed up. In June, we installed a new heat pump-based heating and cooling system, and part of that decision was the fact that we qualified for a $10,000 rebate. The documentation for that rebate was submitted in July, and MassSave did an inspection in August, and then I didn't hear anything. And to make a long story short, after several calls over several months, I was supposed to get a rebate check on December 5th. Instead, I get an email on December 7th saying they don't have the home inspection report that indicates that our house meets the weatherization requirements. That inspection was done by MassSave, and as part of the documentation, we had to give them the ID number, the MassSave ID number for that inspection.
Okay, so you want to Tom, I think we get the concept. You want him to
Tom, you should stay on. I have 2 team members here, but Lauren and Martin, who have notes in the air that I can't really see, but there is yes, agencies involved, but I think it's best if you connect with them. If you stay on the line, we'll connect with them, and we can follow up on your individual case with MassSave and go from there.
Tom, do not hang up. Our colleagues will take your contact
Martin
information.
and Lauren are here.
And give it
They're in the building. They work very hard.
Andrea Campbell's colleagues. Tom, thank you for the call. 877-301-8970. 8970. What is the name of the what's your gun unit?
Gun violence prevention unit.
Prevention unit.
Yes, Christine and Ryan, they are doing great work.
Now, Margie and I spent a lot of time trashing the legislature for being slow on a variety of things.
I won't do that.
I know you won't, so you can do whatever you choose. However, you are focused on a gun issue. One of the many things that they left behind when they went on their 7-week vacation, which they're in the midst of right now, was this gun legislation because of a petty, small, childish dispute about committees and what committee should do what. And while it's standing there, not only is gun legislation, I think either passed by the House or at least acted upon in the House, sitting in nowhere land. But I just read this piece about ghost guns where this Representative David Linsky tells a hearing a majority of the crime guns that are currently recovered in Boston and Springfield and in some other urban communities are in fact ghost guns. And as of the moment, without this legislation, they're unregulated. You print these out on your 3D printer, go commit a horrible gun crime.
Or get them shipped to your home and put the pieces together. I will say, so we established, when I campaigned, I pledged to do more on guns because we are so progressive here in Massachusetts and we have the opportunity to lead on these issues nationally. So we established a gun violence prevention unit just a couple of months ago. Christine, who is the director, just came. She came from Everytown, which is doing amazing work across the country. Yes, when it comes to enforcing gun laws and pushing for advocacy and legislative solutions. She's our new director. She's based in Western Mass. Ryan comes from the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, so he's our deputy director, and they've already hit the ground running. And what they're doing is a few things. One is in partnership with our existing lawyers and our CAD law and government bureau divisions, and one, working with the legislature on legislative solutions. It includes advocacy around changing our laws to be able to regulate and enforce penalties against ghost guns. The House obviously has their version, but we're meeting with the Senate, and we've met and had conversations with them more than once as they work through their version. I'm confident that all of us coming together will be able to come up with a final solution of a very comprehensive bill to address these issues. And in the meantime, the Gun Violence Prevention Unit is also, with our Gov Bureau and team, defending our existing gun laws, which are sadly under attack. We're working with other states, New York, California, right now in California, to protect their assault weapons ban. So we're working with other states, too, because it's a national issue. We're also doing advocacy to make sure that people know that our office, we want to be sort of a one-stop shop for compliance and training and technical assistance to our law enforcement partners, which we'll continue to do. So more to come, but I'm optimistic. I'm not pessimistic that we will get this right. That we
Is
will
there
work
any
with
argument
folks.
against registering and
No.
putting serial numbers
Everyone
on
is on
guns?
the same page when it comes to ghost guns. I think the difference between the House and the Senate is the
Is there
Senate may
petty disagreements?
Well, I can't speak to. I'm not in the House
Okay.
or the Senate, but I will say is I think the House has their version of what they want to do, and the Senate has theirs. I think the Senate will also add additional measures to their piece of legislation that will eventually come out. And then we'll all come together, and I think we'll get something meaningfully done, particularly on ghost guns, which we've been at the table informing a lot of that. And I'm really proud of the Gun Violence Prevention Unit. They've hit the ground running, and they've only been in the job a couple of months. And I can't stress enough our CAD law division, our administrative law division, who's responsible for defending all of our laws, but particularly these gun laws, have been very busy and on the front lines of doing meaningful work, so I'm grateful to them, too.
Attorney General, you and the Attorney General of New Hampshire and some others are concerned about Instagram, and you filed suit to get against Meta.
Yes.
What's going on?
A lot going on, and I know I'll say today probably throughout the whole program that everyone should care about everything we're saying. It's just as every issue we're talking about, and the country is so divisive, and D.C. can't seem to get anything done, it's coming back to the states, but it really is the AGs that are stepping up. And I'm really proud, and at least with this lawsuit against Meta and Instagram, that it is Republicans and Democrats coming to work together, which is a very rare thing these days. Over 41 states have signed on to this complaint filed against Meta. The New Hampshire AG and I, who's Republican-appointed AG, we work closely on a whole bunch of things, including neo-Nazi groups and this. And it's all about a few things. One, saying to Meta and Instagram that right now across this country we have an uptick in anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide when it comes to our kids. And we are going to prioritize the well-being of our young people here in Massachusetts and across the country. And we know one way of doing that is holding companies accountable that design products that may have some benefit, but also may have some detrimental effect. In this case, we are all alleging that Meta and Instagram is having some harmful effects on our kids by the way in which they design that platform to make them addicted to it, to engage it even more, increasing more of their addictive behavior, and as a result, creating more anxiety and depression and so much more for our young people. We're engaging youth and youth-based organizations across the Commonwealth and the country. It's crystal clear. And what's worse is they put the onus almost on the user to change behavior. When they studied the brains of our kids, they designed the product not for our age group, but for teenagers, for young kids to use it, to make them addicted to it. They studied it. They were intentional. They could change the way in which these platforms are designed, and there are different ideas on how to do that, and they have rejected that. And so we're saying that's deceptive, it's misleading, and under our consumer protection laws, we have a really strong case against them.
Yeah, we had Joan Donovan on yesterday. We'll get to that in a few minutes because she's she's investigating related things, and obviously has a whistleblower complaint against Harvard, which was, among other places, filed at your office. We'll get back to that. Andrew in Waltham, you're next with the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, good morning. I'm from Walpole, actually, just to be.
Sorry, my apologies.
Truth in advertising, no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the call, Madam Attorney General. Until recently, I worked for a local nonprofit as a bookkeeper. During my tenure there, I unfortunately uncovered at least $25,000 of theft by a fellow employee who was subsequently terminated. During our recent audit, I was pressing management, the accountant, and the auditor to accurately report the amount that was stolen. They wanted to minimize it. I was fired shortly thereafter from my quote-unquote insubordination, despite at one point seeking whistleblower status. I know the AG's office can't be my attorney, and I don't want to sue. It's an organization that I believe in. But how would you counsel me to ensure transparency and accountability for the organization's management?
Well, it's a nonprofit-based organization. I would suggest and hope that you would follow up with our office and stay on the line. We have a charities division. They do incredible work with all things nonprofits, and it is about transparency and accountability, including misappropriation of funds. So if you are willing to stay on the line, that would be helpful, Andrew, and to share a little bit more, and we can hopefully help to navigate some of this. And do it in a way that I think it sounds like you want to be protective of the organization, but still give them the tools they need to deal with this.
Andrew, stay on the line. We'll get your contact info, and we'll give it to the Attorney General's office.
Thank you, Andrew.
877-301-8970.
As long as you mentioned Joan Donovan, why don't we complete the circle here? She used to be at Harvard University. She's a very renowned and respected researcher, social media, disinformation, misinformation, that kind of thing. She claims that after Mark Zuckerberg and his wife donated $500 million to their alma mater, Harvard, that her investigations of Facebook were discouraged. She couldn't hire staff. She wound up actually leaving Harvard and going to BU. And I know your office told CNBC it was reviewing the disclosure. What can be, if any, the Attorney General's involvement in something like this?
I don't have a clear answer on that yet. We just got it, right? So when I say we're reviewing it, we're reviewing it. And I think, like every other decision, whether it's around the auditor or some things that are in the news, and I know people want a response on quickly, we're reviewing it. And we will do that, and we'll come back with more once we sort of had an opportunity to do just that and to see what we can do in this regard.
One of the things she raised yesterday was the dean of the Kennedy School, Doug Elmendorf, allegedly saying to her that only professors have academic freedom, not staff, and she's not on a tenure track there, even though she's on a tenure track now at BU. Here's a little bit of how she was describing that conversation. This is Joan Donovan, the disinformation researcher, probably the most preeminent one in the country, about her meeting with Doug Elmendorf.
And he said to me, listen, I want you to know you don't have academic freedom. And I was almost on the point of vomiting at that point. And then he said, I want you to know you're just staff here. And I thought about the implications for me, but also my entire team are staff. And these are people that are publishing about the contentious behaviors of these enormous companies.
Including places like Facebook. Is there a role for the Attorney General's office on an issue like that on a campus?
I don't know yet, but what I will say is, and when I say we're still reviewing what Joan has submitted to the office, we are, and the team is, we're thorough, we'll put it like that. But what I will say is, I was just at a conference in Washington, D.C. It's an organization, NAG, that hosts Republican and Democratic AGs. And a topic of discussion in many of the contexts with AGs is artificial intelligence, machine learning, misinformation. And I was on a panel with the New Hampshire AG with various experts. We continue to get information out there just to inform folks about all of these new and emerging technologies. And that's where we want to focus on. But one point that was made by one of the experts on the panel was some of the antitrust issues in this context. In the power of these companies, even if you have a whole bunch of startups that are looking to go into AI or to use it for some beneficial purpose for all of us, that they still have to rely on these larger companies, Microsoft, Google's, IBM's of the world, for certain types of infrastructure and certain things to be able to get that technology off the ground. And the concern we should all have about the power that lies and exists within just a few companies and corporations. And it's a legitimate point. And the whole conference and continued conversations around these issues is to make sure that we are not only thinking about it, but also thinking about the role the office plays. So I'm always thinking about what's our lane in these conversations. So the point she makes about these powerful corporations in this context is a bit scary. And so I want to make sure I'm equipped with the knowledge, the expertise. I am not an expert when it comes to these type of technologies. Even hired someone to come back to the office to oversee this work, particularly AI, the benefits and also the potential harms in state government, in the private sector. So more to come. And I think for us, it's looking at how do we use our professors, our institutions right here to offer up that expertise, not only to ourselves, but to the world. So more to come on that.
Lori in Roslindale, you're on with the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. Hey.
Hi, Attorney. The work you're doing. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Well, I'm not sure. Keep talking
Great.
and we'll tell you if we have a phone problem. Go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, so I'm calling because the Transportation Department here in Roslindale has put together a parking plan. And if you look at the descriptive statistics, you'll see that it is disproportionately unfair to our Black, Latinx, and immigrant business owners and residents. And there will be revenues then that will be from parking meters that will be more of it will be paid than white counterparts. So I've taken this to the city councilor, the mayor's office, the transportation department, my state reps. I went to Suffolk County DA's Hayden's office, and they recommended I come to you. And my question is this a civil rights violation? Potentially. And if it is, do you have to be one of the merchants or residents to file it? Because right now there's a lot of intimidation in Rosendale Square when it comes to parking, and I don't need to go into that.
Two things,
But
Lori.
She understands, Lori.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I understand. Two things, Lori. One, I don't know enough, so I don't know anything about the parking plan or anything. I haven't heard anything. So feel free to send us more information. I know the mayor is coming on. I think you should call in and talk to the mayor, who is going to be on at some point later today to get her perspective or feedback on it, because I don't know anything, and obviously it's in the jurisdiction of the city. But if you want to separately follow up with us, you can stay on the line. We can get your contact. You can email us more information and go from there.
Lori, stay on hold. We will get your contact information.
And then call back later on.
Yeah, that's right.
And the Attorney General is directing you to call back later on there, Lori. So
we are indeed
do as you please.
Talking to the Attorney General. Andrea Campbell will be with us till the top of the hour, taking our questions and yours. If you want to reach her, text her, call her, try 877-301-8970. I believe we have a homing mic right here at the Boston Public Library, too. Hannah's over there in the corner at the desk. If anybody has a question, feel free to go up and ask it. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, and facebook.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, comedian Alex Edelman roots his comedy in his Jewish upbringing. By breaking down anti-Semitism, bigotry, and Jewish identity, he's also breaking down barriers and creating provocative and uproarious comedy along the way. He'll join us to talk about his Broadway hit Just For Us, which returns to Boston. Plus, vocal ensemble Blue Heron joins us with a preview of their holiday concert. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Boston Foundation. Knowing it takes all of us to advance equity, TBF is committed to being a convener and a civic leader. TBF. Move equity. Move Boston. TBF.org. And Babson College. Students can gain the skill set and mindset they need to become entrepreneurial leaders through Babson's MBA program. Ranked #1 in entrepreneurship by U.S. News & World Report. Babson.edu/MBA. And City Year, dedicated to helping students reach their full potential. City Year places AmeriCorps mentors in public school classrooms to support students academically and socially. You can learn more at cityyear.org. And Hebrew Senior Life, a Harvard Medical School affiliate empowering seniors to reach their full potential with a wide range of services. You can discover senior living, healthcare, aging research, and more at allweareforyou.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're broadcasting live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. At noon, the mayor will be with us for an hour, Michelle Wu. And if you call in before that, the Attorney General will tell you whether or not you should call in to talk to the mayor as well. Apparently, she sees that as her role. The number is 877-301-8970. The Attorney General is with us until 1 o'clock.
So, Attorney General, I'm getting a lot of texts today about cashlessness or cash not being accepted. I know that I know Maura Healey, before she was the governor, she was in your role, Attorney General. She signed off on Fenway Park. You can go, I guess, some deal where you put cash into a machine, then you get a card back. Gillette is cashless, TD Garden. I guess the Boston Calling Music Festival is. We have texters saying that they have not had cash accepted at Bay State Medical Center, UMass Memorial Medical Center, and somebody says they couldn't get cash, buy cash at the Nutcracker. So that seems kind of...
Oh, I'm going to be at a date with my son tonight at the Nutcracker.
That's right, you brought it, but your credit cards, your debit cards. So what is the deal in Massachusetts with cash?
Cash has to be accepted everywhere.
It has to be accepted everywhere.
And so we are actively reviewing this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, some things happened before I got into office, and first of all, the folks who were texting or sending you messages about this, it would be helpful if they also, of course, reached out to the office, mass.gov/AGO.
Okay.
To just file these complaints, because the more we know about which vendors we're talking about, the better. I was talking to someone yesterday that brought their grandkids to a game and wanted to give them cash to go get a hot dog and not a credit card to like the 12-year-old, and expressed frustration about not being able to do that in certain venues. So we're actively reviewing this. We're in conversations with some of the folks that you just mentioned based on what was done or said previously. So more to come on this. I know we've gotten a lot of outreach here. Give me a little bit more time. We'll be back on this in terms of what the law is and how folks have to come into compliance. And we also are mindful that whether it's young people, elders, not everyone has a credit card, not everyone has a smartphone app, and in various ways in which people are expecting them to pay. They have to take all forms of money. So more to come on that.
877-301-8970.
Dave from New Hampshire, you're on with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth.
From New Hampshire.
Yes,
wrong state,
that's right,
but we're
wrong
glad to have
state,
you, Dave. Go
that's
ahead.
okay.
I work for the MBTA, so it
counts.
And you...
So the commuter rail operator does not comply with the Massachusetts earned sick time law. Do you think state contractors should comply with a law such as important as the earned sick time law?
Well, I absolutely think you should comply with all of our laws. But if you want to stay on, Dave, obviously you work for the T in a particular department. Can you stay on and just connect with my team? and we'll get more details and follow up with you on your specific case.
Stick around, Dave. Thank you.
Move back
put you
to
on hold.
Massachusetts. You have a nice AG up there, but move back to Massachusetts.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Here's something I'm really excited about, having been a frequent customer when I was younger of Rent-A-Center. Lots of people rent things, whether it's big speakers or it's furniture. Or what's going on with Rent-A-Center?
So Rent-A-Center, I want to make sure I get the number right, too, because we've had so many settlements come out recently, and I'm really proud of this one. And YL, who leads our consumer protection division, and Michael worked in this case, I got to give them a shout-out because they work really hard. In this case, and growing up on Mass Ave, we had a Rent-A-Center on the corner. It's no longer there. It's now a restaurant. But there are a lot of companies like this where you sort of rent to eventually be able to buy. And there were folks who weren't able to pay, and for different reasons, they articulated that. And what Rent-A-Center did was to use very aggressive tactics to go after these folks, calling them more than they should, threatening them, using harassing language, just really causing significant financial and emotional harm. And we know that many folks would say they are in certain communities where it's largely poor people and communities of color. And so we are very concerned about tactics like this used to exploit folks in certain communities. So the team reached a $9 million deal with them, which they'll pay to the state, and some of that will have be restitution and other ways to resolve these issues. And I'm confident going forward they will adjust their practices. And it also demonstrates to, I think, to other companies like this or who are thinking about coming here to do work like this, that we are really focused on, as we think about how we build wealth in certain communities, exploitation of certain communities is critical. Yeah. And there are certain companies that are doing it only in certain communities, and our consumer protection folks are on it. So I'm just grateful to the team for their work here. It's significant.
Stay on consumer protection for 1 second. You've also spoken about these atrocious hidden convenience fees. You find some outrageous price for a ticket. You say to yourself, well, I'm going to do it because I really love him or her or them or whatever. And then you click on it and you find out there's a $50 convenience fee or resort fee or something. What are you doing about this?
So before I go into that, because my team is so good, Adam, I also am shouting you out from CRD for his work on Rent-A-Center, which is a major settlement in our Civil Rights Division. So it was consumer protection, civil rights coming together. And you know me, I like to thank my team because they are overworked and underpaid.
Well,
Adam, thank
checked.
you.
There are 3 people in your office you haven't thanked yet. Do you want to thank them now? Or do you want to?
There's a whole bunch of folks I can thank, but I could go on. You know me.
No, I think that's, actually it's a wonderful quality, to be perfectly honest.
They do so much, and many of these teams are small, and they work really hard. And these settlements, they sometimes can take years or shorter period of time to really deliver for consumers. So junk fees.
Junk fees, that's right.
Junk fees. Everyone pay attention to junk fees. Everyone should be concerned about this issue. These are these hidden surprise fees that show up when you're going to purchase a product or a service. So say, for example, you are advertised a product, or you're buying a product, it says $100. And at the end of the transaction, you're paying $300. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? These are fees, service fees, convenience fees. There's always a new name for them. And we're saying here in Massachusetts, our consumer protection laws are so strong that we're going after those. So we put out proposed regulations, which we're asking folks to comment on. They can visit our website to do just that. There's an in-person opportunity to comment on these junk fees and how they affect you and your family as you go about buying things on December 20th. And we want folks to comment, and we want folks to weigh in, because we have an opportunity not only to require greater transparency so that, for example, when you're going to buy something, companies have to reveal to you at the front end the total price of the good, including those fees. They have to go a step further. They also have to make sure that they tell you what the fees are, why they are being assessed. Are they mandatory? Are they optional? And if they're optional, for example, or they're waivable, how do you go about waiving them? And so really specific. And then also when it comes to these subscriptions and trial offers, sometimes you opt in, you buy it, and then to try to get out of it, it's a total nightmare. You can't opt out the same way you opted in, or you can't unsubscribe the same way you subscribed. And so we're saying you can't do that either.
Do you have the power to enforce these things?
Yes, we do.
You don't need legislation?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
and the federal government is doing something in this space. I want to give credit to the Biden administration on this. We've taken it a step further in a couple of aspects. But this is, when we talk about affordability issues, this is a major issue. And so we just hope folks will pay attention to junk fees and participate in the comment period, because we need to hear your voices on this.
Sarah on the Cape, you're on with the Attorney General. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Sorry, I didn't expect to get through.
It's okay.
I'm super happy to be able to ask you this. I voted for you. I voted for the governor. And my question is about the women that are being killed by these abusive men that actively have restraining orders, and survivors coming forward and having senators. I'm echoing, and having the senators call them liars and PR stunts. So really, there's no avenue for us to make sure that even the laws we have are in place. As an all-female cabinet, what do you guys plan on doing to address this at any time?
Well, Sarah, I don't know if there's something reading between the lines, if there's some other layers or specific case or cases you're referencing. So if you want to stay on, I'd be happy. First of all, thank you for the support. I'd be happy to follow up with you on this. We do a lot. Obviously, we have, whether it's Human Trafficking Division, the Active Crim Bureau that takes these cases very seriously. And I would just add a trauma-informed approach that our team delivers on that is not always the case, including sometimes where you're interacting with judges or others. So we do our best to show up in this regard to do what we can. And so just stay on the line. I think we can explain more, but if there's some more specific cases that you want to reference, that would be helpful.
Sarah, stick around. We'll take your contact information. You mentioned you were at a meeting a couple of days ago of attorneys general, including some Republicans. Can we, for a second, talk about one of the most sadistic of them, Ken Paxton, who is literally about a foot ahead of the law and is lucky that he's still the attorney general.
That's right.
The Supreme Court there ruled that, despite a lower court ruling saying that a woman in an individual situation had a right to an abortion despite the laws of Texas, that court was wrong. Ken Paxton went right after it, talking about, I think, prosecuting the doctor, too, if it had been performed. The woman ultimately had to leave the state because she was 21 weeks pregnant.
And her fetus was diagnosed with a fatal condition.
Exactly.
That's right.
What do we do, because I've heard you talk about it before, and the governor, actually, what do we do for women who are in jurisdictions like Texas where these kinds of things happen? What can we do? What do we do?
I think we've done a few things already. You know, we have the abortion hotline here in Massachusetts, which is open to others outside of Massachusetts to call to get a deep understanding of what their rights may be and to do it in a very confidential way. And we've done that with a whole bunch of stakeholders to get that off the ground. We have the Reproductive Justice Unit, too, which is also, we set up, it's a new unit in the office that's doing remarkable work, working with other more like-minded states to protect these folks' rights in other states, and doing it as a collective, which I think is really important. In addition, that same unit is here in Massachusetts looking at what we need to do to improve our laws in terms of access and how do we support community-based health centers in particular that are making sure that where there are deserts here in Massachusetts to reproductive health care, to getting an abortion, that doesn't exist. In this case, this Cox case in Texas is painful. And if folks don't know about it, they should read up on it. This is a woman who obviously wants to become a mom and a parent, and unfortunately found out some terrible news about what would happen if she were to give birth, possibly stillbirth for her child, or her losing her own life. And so goes into court to follow all the laws and the procedures as defined by Texas, gets this order, and to have the Texas AG, which, by the way, is as if there's nothing else to do. How busy are you? Really, I'm going to direct all my energy and resources here to essentially block her in the court to also get this terribly wrong. It just speaks to the state of affairs when it comes to reproductive justice and reproductive freedom in this country, and just how draconian it is, the laws are in the state of affairs in certain states, including Texas. But I'm grateful for some of our southern states that are stepped up led by Democratic AGs, to really do their part. At the same conference, you know, it's different conferences. We have the Arizona AG, we have the New Mexico AG. We have many folks who are doing their part, and we're all going to continue to do that. But this is why this issue continues to be a voting issue, a pressing issue, is because it is about freedom. It's not just about access to an abortion. I tell folks, regardless of how you feel about that particular issue, this is about how you parent, how you choose to parent, how you choose to raise your family. And in many cases, life and death. And in this particular case, it highlights this is life and death. And it's really unfortunate as someone who is about to lose, and as a mother of 2 young boys, who is about to lose a child, has to go through this traumatic process on top of that. And the harm that will cause her and her family, I can't even imagine. So we'll continue to do our part, and we have an opportunity to do some really remarkable leadership work here in Massachusetts, and we'll do that.
You know what
Thank you for raising that, because we have to work with some difficult AGs in this country right now.
You know what I wonder? I mean, I'm not a lawyer. You're both lawyers. But it just seems that somehow what they've done to this woman, and it's also might impact her future fertility.
That's right.
Saying that she is facing these significant health risks. Too bad. Tough.
That's right.
You can't do that to a man in the United States of America. And I always think, isn't there someone can bring a case or something about that? Because it's basically saying you're just a vessel. You don't have rights as a full-fledged human being.
Well, I think where we are focusing our efforts is to protect our existing laws as they exist now, to this right to access to medicated abortion, to reproductive health care, period, and gender-affirming care. All health care should be available to everyone. And yes, it is absolutely about not just women, birthing people who are being challenged every single day in this country with the choices the personal, private choices they make on how they parent and how they choose to rear a family, which that is a personal decision. Government, get out of our way.
Yeah.
And the other piece, so that is just as significant and sad, is these folks are in these positions of power because people voted or people didn't vote. So civic engagement during this time is critical. Most of the AGs who are on the front lines and on the right side of this particular issue are Democratic AGs, and most are voted into office. And so what does it mean to exercise our civic engagement, our right to vote, to put people into office who align with our values, even if you disagree on certain things, you're not going to agree on everything, but who are about protecting the safety and well-being of people and the safety and well-being of this woman. And clearly this Texas AG is not concerned at all. And I don't know him well. He has been at different conferences at different moments, randomly showing up and then leaving. But I think is just a reminder of what it means to exercise our right to vote. 2024, 2026, these are major years, particularly in the context of AG races. And AGs are on the front lines. Yes, our governor does remarkable work, our other elected officials too. But in other states, AGs are significant, just like here in Massachusetts. So we have an obligation to vote, but also to protect those who are doing meaningful work to protect our rights.
Yeah, and she could not, if she had not had the money, she would have been stuck in Texas.
That's right, and God bless the folks on the front lines, the legal service organizations, the advocates, folks here who are traveling to our southern states, including Texas. Our healthcare industry here is so incredible. They're on the front lines training folks on how to provide reproductive services in other states. So Massachusetts is leading in so many different ways. It's remarkable. But at the same time, the face of our political system right now, there's a lot at stake, not just in the context of our basic civil rights and human rights. When we think about democracy, the state of our affairs as we go into a presidential election, which is going to be a very scary time in 2024, this is a time for us not to run away, but to really lean in and to show up and to advocate and to make our voices heard and to exercise civic engagement. I can't stress that enough.
We only have a couple of minutes left. I assume you've consumed either the podcast or the written series on the murder of Carol DeMady Stewart in the Globe the last couple of days.
Somewhat.
And you were young.
Absolutely. I was at Latin school.
10.
Yeah.
No, I think, you were born in the early 80s, am I right?
That's right.
Right, and this is 89. What's your takeaway as somebody who was so young then and a boy? What's your takeaway from the series?
It's interesting because I think it's a great series. I think it not as a trigger, but it does bring back that time period because although I was young, I do remember people talking about it, the fear in the community. I grew up in Roxbury in the South End. The fear in the community. Mission Hill was not far away. And I think they're speaking to so many different things. The silence by either folks who are in government or folks in community who knew certain things but didn't say a thing. The media and how the media frames things and the bias within that reporting or the jumping to conclusions. Clearly, this bias still exists in so many systems today, and clearly we still have work to do. So I applaud the team there, Adrian Walker and others who are doing some remarkable work. And I know it's probably painful for so many people to have it come back. And I'm sure it was challenging to figure out the various angles in which to bring back such a painful, tragic story, but to do it in such a way that can hopefully get us not to do something like that again. But we still have work to do, and that framing piece is critical.
Attorney General, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. And I hope
It's
they
great to
straighten
be
things
here.
out next door.
And
to you.
happy holidays to everyone,
To
including
you
those
too.
in the audience and the callers. And thank you all for the work you do.